Republicans and Democrats came together during a Senate Commerce Committee hearing to stop the clock. Lawmakers essentially stopped the clock. Lawmakers are debating whether to end the practice of switching the time twice a year to adjust to the changing seasons. In the hearing, lawmakers and health experts argued that changing the clocks back and forth harms health, but they are at odds on which one to choose. Some say the early morning sunrise improves mood, while others argue less light in the evenings causes seasonal affective disorder. President Trump previously said the decision would be a tough one.
I assume people would like to have more light later, but some people want to have more light earlier because they don't want to take their kids to school in the dark. And it's a little bit one way, but it's very much a 50-50 issue.
The SAVE Act, which requires people to provide proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections, has officially passed the House. However, almost all Democrats voted against it, with 4 siding with Republicans. The measure also requires states to remove non-citizens from their voter rolls and allows lawsuits against election officials to register people without proof of U.S. citizenship. Speaker Mike Johnson said the party knows that illegal immigrants are voting.
87% of the American people demand that Congress does. Only U.S. citizens should decide U.S. elections. It is in federal law, but it is not always enforced.
Currently, voters just have to check a box saying they are eligible to vote and do not have to provide any type of identification or proof that they are U.S. citizens. Greg?
President Donald Trump issued a memorandum on Thursday entitled Addressing Risk Associated with an Egregious Leaker and Disseminator of Falsehoods. The document named Miles Taylor, who served in the Department of Homeland Security during Trump's first administration, but the president made it clear he didn't know Taylor.
He walks into the office. He's supposed to be sitting here. A lot of people, I'll be here and there'll be 20 people standing in the room. There'll be oftentimes young people in the office. I assume he was one of them at least, but I didn't know anything about him. And he wrote a book, Anonymous, and I always thought it was terrible. And now we have a chance to find out whether or not it was terrible.
The memorandum stripped Taylor of any security clearances. The Department of Justice was also directed to investigate Taylor's actions during his tenure. Taylor wrote an anonymous opinion editorial for the New York Times in 2018, claiming to be, quote, a part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. And Donald Trump is taking aim at the Department of Justice and the FBI for slow-walking the release of documents related to a House investigation. Early this week, the president took to X, writing this, quote, lawmakers of the House Judiciary Committee are angrily accusing the Department of Justice of missing the Thursday deadline for turning over unredacted documents relating to FISA abuse, FBI, Comey, Lynch, McCabe, Clinton emails, and much more. Slow-walking. What is going on? Bad. The committee is investigating alleged criminality and abuse during the election, questioning the decisions the FBI made about the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, the information withheld from FISA court justices, and the spying on the Trump campaign by the Department of Justice. All right, joining us now is Convention of States Action President, Victory News contributor Mark Meckler. Mark, welcome to Victory News.
Good to be with you.
All right, we're under a new administration now. So why do you think the FBI and the DOJ are dragging out the release of the information on Hillary Clinton emails and political spying on the Trump campaign that was during the Department of Justice?
Look, I don't think it's intentional. I certainly have faith in Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. My best guess, and I am hearing some of this buzz from inside the FBI and the DOJ, is that they've still got a resistance inside and that they're struggling to get these things put together. They're struggling to find the documents. They're struggling to get cooperation from existing staff. So I think there's a real war going on inside the FBI right now. I think it's very smart that they're not actually talking about this. And I have faith that Patel and Bongino are going to root this stuff out over time.
Well, if anybody could, you would think those two can. I wanted to get your reaction to the immigration judge this afternoon finding Mahmoud Khalil is removable and that Secretary of State Marco Rubio's decision may go forward. Your thoughts on that?
I think this was always going to be the result. I think it was inevitable. And the federal government has broad discretion when people are here as visitors. Or even on green cards, they have broad discretion to remove people who they believe are involved in activities supporting terrorist organizations with interests against the United States. I'm glad that they went through the process and that he had what we would describe as due process in this country. And now he needs to go back from where he came.
All right, let's take a listen to Batya Ungar-Sargon, liberal turned Trump supporter, come out swinging on CNN for president's tariffs. Here it is.
I've been thinking a lot about the 10 million Americans who lost their homes in the 2008 financial crisis and how President Obama's first act in office was to give $700 billion to the banks that caused it. And I'm thinking about how those very Americans saw a president pick Wall Street over Main Street. And what they saw this whole week was a president willing to go out there and fight for the forgotten men and women of this heartland.
Wow, your reaction to her comparison of the real estate crash under Obama and the current choppy waters with President Trump's tariffs?
Yeah, I actually think it's an apt comparison. And what she's doing is contrasting these two presidents, and that you had a president in Obama, contrary to what he said he was going to do when he got elected, that was always there for Wall Street, that bailed out Wall Street, that bailed out the banks, and didn't seem to care about the American middle class, about the average person. Donald Trump is doing exactly the opposite. He's willing to go after the fat cats on Wall Street for the benefit of the average American.
Now, Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, told CNN illegal aliens' Social Security numbers were being discovered and then canceled. Here it is.
If IRS investigators find illegal aliens stealing taxpayer money, of course they'll be referred to ICE. Of course they'll be referred to Homeland Security investigations. Of course it will be. Surely your position is not that we should let illegal aliens steal taxpayer dollars.
Isn't Biden giving Social Security benefits to illegal aliens reducing what's left for Americans that are on Social Security?
Yeah, it continues to speed Social Security to insolvency, and it's outrageous that people in the mainstream media are upset about this. Again, showing a theme among Democrats, they don't care about average Americans, they care about their woke policies.
That's crazy. Here, a U.S. district judge will issue a stay Trump administration order for more than 500,000 Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans to leave the country. The judge said ending the Biden program and legal protections for 500,000 immigrants was based on an incorrect reading of the law. Mark, you're an attorney. What say you?
Look, this is temporary protective status. That's up to the DHS secretary. That status has now been legally revoked. There's a 60-day time frame for notice. That time frame was complied with. I think ultimately this is going to be overturned.
Oh, thank you, Mark. We'll bring you back here in just a moment. Fior.
Greg, after a wild ride this week, markets appear to be taking a breath after massive losses for all three indices over concern about tariffs earlier in the week. The market rebounded Wednesday with the Dow settling up today at 5% on the week. The impact of Trump's tariffs are at the top of mind going into next week as inflation data has shown a significant decline, primarily as a result of falling energy prices. Questions remain if Congress can deliver tax cuts and savings to offset the rise in tariff costs for consumers. So we shall see. White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett announced Thursday that trade deals were moving fast as countries scrambled to secure trade agreements.
USTR has informed us that there are maybe 15 countries now that have made explicit offers that we're studying and considering. This is a really fast process now that's not beginning today or yesterday. It began long before.
Hassett emphasized the president's 90-day pause was due to, quote, good faith conversations and President Trump demonstrating he was 100% serious about putting American workers first.